Here we have Aeneid, Book 4. I'm just going to do lines 659 through 692 right now. And this is thus begins the melodrama. So this is Dido's downfall, and probably one of the most vivid scenes in the Aeneid, at least for me. I feel like I have a very clear picture in my mind of it. So here we go. Let's see, choose a little pointer here. Okay, so we just closed a quote here with Dixit. She just cursed Aeneas, and that's a reference to the Punic War, saying that the Carthaginians and the Romans would have beef in the future. And so she spoke, and having imprinted a kiss, literally a mouth, but it's a kiss, on the bed, she said, "We will die unavenged." Here using the royal we, but let us die. Kind of, she's saying like thus, but we might say like yes, it will help to go under the shades, meaning down to the underworld. Let him drink this fire, or this flame, with his eyes, the cruel Dardanian from the deep. So she's assuming that Aeneas is going to look back and see the funeral pyre that she's lying on, and he'll drink it in with his eyes. And let him carry with himself omens of our death. So, yeah, he'll figure out that funeral pyre is indeed Dido going up in smoke. Dixerat, she had spoken. And, here it comes. Her companions, right? Her servants, her ladies in waiting, they see that one, meaning Dido, collapse, or having collapsed in the middle of such things. Being like, probably the things that she's collapsing in the middle of would be all the like stuff from Aeneas, all her memories and mementos and tokens of Aeneas that she's gathered together. So she collapsed in the middle of such things by iron, or with iron, meaning a sword. And they see a sword foaming with blood and her hands spattered. So in order for the sword to be foaming with blood, the only time that a wound will foam in a human body is if that wound has punctured the lung. So she got herself right dead center in the chest, and the sword has punctured her lung, and now air is escaping through the chest cavity. An uproar goes about to the high halls, the high atria, and rumor comes in again, and she rages wildly. She runs wildly through the shaken city. So rumor is now carrying the rumor of Dido's death. And the roofs roar with lamentations and a groan and a feminine ululation, or a feminine howl, a feminine shrieking. Here you have qua and et, which would have lied to be quet, but that's polysyndeton. And the word ululato, is onomatopoeic, because it is real, like they would literally be making the sound like the sound, sort of like a shrieking. And the aether, the upper air, resonates, right, or resounds with a great wailing. I think plangoribus would be with great wailings. Not other than if, literally English word order, not other than if the whole, like all of Carthage or ancient Tyre should fall or would fall with the enemy having been sent in. So this is the same sound that you would hear if an enemy army had breached the walls, and flames raging would unroll through the roofs of men and through we assume, roofs of the gods. Here you have an apostrophe because it's per culmina, not culmina pair. Your preposition should go in front of the culmina. And you're also gapping out the culmina. You're sort of reusing the culmina over here. Pair the culmina deorum. And the breathless sister hears, and terrified, with a trembling haste, she rushes. Having been terrified with the trembling haste, she rushes, she ruit, paramedios through the middle, of all of this going on, and foidans, she's disfiguring her aura, her face, her cheeks, ungibus, with her nails, her like fingernails, and bruising her chest, bruising her breast with fists. Zeugma here is describing the use of foidons, meaning both disfiguring in this sense, disfiguring her face, and bruising her chest. It's two sort of related meanings of this one word. And she shouts for the dying one by name. So this is Anna, her sister, finding out, hearing that her sister has stabbed herself. If anybody has a sibling, imagine if someone told you that they had stabbed themselves through the chest with a sword, and what your reaction would be. So it's not gentle. And so she gets mad at first, right? You have the whole stages of grieving. And so she says sort of like, was this what the thing, right? Was this it? Kind of asking her sister, was this what you were planning? Was this it? Were you seeking me, in deceit? Right? So she was asking Anna's help to collect all of Aeneas's gifts, so she could burn them. Not really. She wanted to create this pyre so that she could, kill herself on it and then turn it into her funeral pyre, which is like very dramatic. This is a sticky line here. It's sort of like, you have to sort of assume that like a fuit is in there. So it's sort of like, an ista is a derogatory pronoun. You can sort of translate it as like that wicked or like that stinking, right? So, was it this, like, was this stinking pyre for me? Were the fires and altars preparing this? Sort of like, is this what this was all about? Like, was this, is this a pyre for me to mourn you? And she says, deserted. Like, what should I look for first? What should I lament? Querar is not quaiso, or quairo. So it's sort of like, what should I lament first? What should I lament first? Do you, dying one, reject, or did you reject your sister as a companion? Sort of like, did you, or as a friend, right? Did you keep me outside of your confidence? And she's saying, like, this wokasas is sort of it's a subjunctive, so she's sort of saying, like, would that you had called me to the same fate, right? Meaning, would that I could have died with you. If only, sort of, the same grief and the same hour had brought us both by the sword, or had carried us both by the sword. Oh boy, poor Anna. All right. Then in line 680, she says, like, have I even built, we assume this, with these hands, and have I called the ancestral gods with my voice, so that I might be away, cruel one, with you having been placed this way? Which is interesting because now Anna is calling Dido a crudelis, whereas just very recently Dido was calling Aeneas a crudelis. She says, "You have destroyed yourself and me, sister, and your people, and your Sidonian fathers, Sidonian ancestors." Again, another, reference to their ancestry, "and your city." Right, so there's this like accusatory tone of like grief, sort of anger that she's done this, that she's tricked her, she's sort of trying to figure this out. And then there's this switch, right, where she says, "Date," sort of like, give her here, give her to me, and so that I may wash these wounds with waters, and if any last breath, halitos, like halitosis, right? If any last breath should wander above, meaning if, like, her last breath had been exhaled, I might collect it with my mouth. And this is a Roman custom of catching the final breath of a dying person, and then sort of like saving their soul, taking their soul into yourself, to protect it. So that's what Anna is trying to say. And she says, so she says, "Give her to me so I can wash her wounds." And fata is from the verb for fari, fatos, right? So having spoken thus, she passed over the lofty steps, and was cherishing, having embraced her sister, right? Was cherishing the half alive sister, maybe having embraced her sister, was cherishing the half alive one, in her arms, right? In her embrace, in her bosom. And then we have with a groan. What's interesting, actually, the aqua comes here, so I'm going to take the cum gemi too with the was cherishing, right? So having embraced her sister, she was cherishing the half alive one in her bosom with a groan, right? So this is sort of that guttural, she's holding her dying sister in her arms, and she's sort of moaning her grief, right? This like deep, emotional, almost like animalistic, like, no, groaning. And she was drying like a desiccant packet, right? She was drying the dark blood with her robe, right? So she's dabbing at the wound, at this probably gushing wound, with her own clothing, trying to staunch the bleeding. God, the image, I don't know if you guys are, this part always messes me up a little bit. A lot of emotions here. All right, so Illa, meaning Dido, having tried to raise her heavy eyes, falls back again, and the wound, having been fixed below her heart, hisses. So here we have more evidence that this wound is actually in the lung, because it's hissing, right? So as she moves, as she tries to breathe, the wound is hissing. And if you read this line, "in fixum streetit sub pectora vulnus," there's a lot of that S sound. It's onomatopoeic for the actual wound hissing. And then we have 3 times she, like raising herself on an elbow, and having leaned on that elbow, she lifted herself up, right? 3 times she was turned over on the bed, with her eyes, eyes wandering, right? With wandering eyes. So her eyes, she's sort of thrashing around on the bed, kind of in her death throes. And her eyes are sort of wildly staring around in her head. And she sought the light in lofty heaven, right? So she's looking, sort of like go into the light. She's looking for the light in heaven. And having been found, she groaned, right? So, oh boy, this is Dido's death thrashing. It's not a pretty sight. It is not It's not a simple Cleopatra being bitten by an asp and sort of just collapsing. This is violent and bloody and graphic and sad and dramatic, and it's loud. It's not a pretty sight. So that is 659 through 692.